Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Vidyan Karava Vahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shan Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudirayet. Welcome back. Today we are going to conclude this discussion between the Brahmana and Vyadha. This whole section is often called Vyadha Gita, and Bhagavad Gita consists of 18 chapters. This consists of 10, and we're seeing the last two chapters where we left off in our last class, which is the end of chapter 206, actually beginning of chapter 206. The Brahmana, who's been having this long discussion with the Vyadha, the butcher, the initial impression of the Brahmana was very unkind. He said some very harsh words to the Vyadha at the outset. But over a period of time, he was won over by the wisdom of the Vyadha. Of course, the Vyadha then went on to explain that he was a Brahmana in his prior life and had been cursed. We saw previously the story of him killing shooting a deer but accidentally hitting a rishi. He was cursed by this rishi to be born as a Vyadha. We saw that in last week's class. But what's significant is that the Brahmana finally says, this is where we ended our last class, he says, Tam Brahmanam aham manye, I consider you to be a Brahmana. Vrittena hi bhavet. Dvijaha bhavet. You are a twice-born, you are a Brahmana, vrittena, by your conduct. And we had a discussion at the end of our prior class that in the Bhagavad Gita, elsewhere in the Mahabharata, it is said again and again and again that caste is not determined by birth at all, but rather caste is determined by vritta, by your behavior, by your action, by who you have become inside. Very important, powerful statement, and it comes so clearly here, as it does in Bhagavad Gita. We quoted that verse from chapter 4. Chatur varanyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha, where Sri Krishna says, in chapter 4, it says, I created those four, the word used here is varna. I created those four varnas according to what? Guna, karma, vibhagashaha. According to the qualities and actions of those people. Did I hear the word janma in that verse? The word janma is missing in that verse. Let's be very, very clear about that. Okay. That being the case, we also reflected at the end of the last class on the terrible abuses that have gone on in Hindu culture over the centuries, and the conclusion was those abuses have no scriptural basis whatsoever. The abuses were terrible, and to some extent they continue even today, but the point we saw is it's impossible to find scriptural support for those kinds of abuses that have taken place. Before we proceed, just a final observation on this very important topic, and that is how it applies to our lives, especially living here in this country. In this country, these four varnas, these four castes, are not of any significance at all, really speaking, in this culture. But there are other divisions that are significant and that sometimes become a problem. For example, divisions of race continue to be a problem in this country, where people of African origin are often subject to discrimination. Well, according to Sri Krishna, to discriminate against anyone based on their birth is a mistake. Because we should take the person according to their guna, their qualities, and their karma, their behavior. So to discriminate based on race is a problem. Nationality is a problem. And I know, there are some issues, especially those who were affected by the terrible problems during partition. Sometimes you find some people with very dim views of Pakistanis. Well, they didn't choose to be born in Pakistan. That's the point. That would be a factor of their birth to judge someone, or now in big issue today, Arabs living in this country and elsewhere are often subject to discrimination. That's absolutely unwarranted. They're an Arab, they're a Pakistani, therefore they're no good. This is just the most base kind of discrimination. There is absolutely no justification for it at all. In fact, Sri Krishna said, and we're seeing here also, based on guna and karma, any time you discriminate based on birth, you're making this mistake. How about religion? It's something you don't think about. Did you choose to be Hindu? For the vast majority of you, it's not a matter of choice. It's a matter of birth. But therefore, those who are born Sunni and Shia, did they choose to be born Sunni and Shia? So it's also from their birth. So to discriminate based on any kind of religion is a mistake if it's based on birth. And the final and most controversial of these observations is the scientific evidence is very strong that being gay is from birth. There's strong scientific evidence that it's not a choice, but rather it is by birth. And if that's so, then any kind of discrimination based on sexuality is making this same error. If it's a condition of birth, if it's a condition of birth, it's due to karma. And who is the karma paladata? And you're going to make some nasty judgment? If it's due to karma and Ishvara is karma paladata, we had better outgrow all of this discriminatory kind of thinking. Okay, enough said. This is where we left off in our last class. And we begin now the final section of teachings, the concluding section of teachings in the Vyadha Gita. Let me introduce it before we see the verses. Vyadha, which means butcher, he was cursed to be a butcher, as you know. Not only was he cursed to be born as a butcher, but he has some kind of siddhi, some kind of special power, where he knows and remembers the curse, and he knows and remembers his prior life. So he has a rather unique situation. He is born, someone who's born as a Muslim or black, or someone who's born gay. They don't have the idea, in a prior life I was like this, in a prior life I was like that. They don't have any such idea. Here, Vyadha knows he was a Brahmana in the prior life, and now what is he doing? He spends every day chopping up animal carcasses. And he knows that he was a Brahmana in his prior life, and he suspects that if he hadn't committed that act of shooting the rishi with the bow, perhaps he would be a Brahmana in this life as well. We don't know, but he might have that thought. Now here's the could be vulnerable to a lot of self-judgment. After all, he's born as a Vyadha due to his own action. And he's born in this very lowly condition, and he knows it. So wouldn't he feel really bad about himself? Or in modern psychological terms, he might have really low self-esteem? Think if something like this happened to you. By the way, this can be understood to represent being born with some congenital defect. And by the way, many people are. Sometimes they're very minor, like having an extra finger or toe. Sometimes they're much more significant. So imagine someone being born with a significant congenital defect. They have to live their whole lives with this congenital defect. Do you think that might be difficult? You bet. Always judging yourselves, comparing yourself to others, and saying, all these other people are normal, look at me, why did I have to be born like this with this congenital defect? In a manner of speaking, Vyadha being born as a Shudra is sort of similar to that congenital defect. You see the similarity? And in other words, they're stuck with it, and there's nothing they can do about it. But now, how to respond? So suppose, and set congenital defects aside, all of us carry with us some problems, some particular problems that we can't do anything about. That's a particular category of problems. Many problems are solvable. Many problems can be handled or ameliorated in some manner. Certain problems you can't do anything about. So someone with a major congenital defect can't do anything about it. So Vyadha can't do anything about being born as a Shudra. You and I may have certain problems that we can't do anything about. How to handle such problems? Obviously, these problems have a potential to really pull us down. Think of the person with a congenital defect. They could really be pulled down and suffer terribly in life and have terrible self-esteem and problems as a result. Vyadha is in the same boat, and to some extent everyone has problems that can't be resolved. How to handle it? How did Vyadha handle knowing that he's born as a Shudra due to his own behavior, looking upon it almost as a congenital defect? How did Vyadha handle that? And that's his final discourse, his final message to the Brahmana, and we'll see that today. Vyadha vacha, Vyadha prajnaya manasam dukkam, prajnaya manas hanyat chariram aushadhaihi, hanyat chariram etad vijnana samarthyam, etad vijnana nabalaya samatam vrajet, nabalaya samatam bhavet. Start in the second line. Shariram in the middle. Hanyat shariram. We have to break the words apart. Shariram means of the body. And pick up the top word, dukkam. Shariram, dukkam. Pain or problems of the body. Hanyat. Should be removed. Should be removed what? Problems of the body should be removed by what? Aushadhaihi. Literally herbs, but in ancient times it meant medicine. So with some kind of medicine, the problems of the body should be removed. What about problems of the mind? Manasam dukkam. Shariram dukkam, problems of the body should be removed by herbs. Manasam dukkam, problems of the mind, like feeling bad Why am I born a Shudra? Why do I have to spend all day chopping up animal carcasses? Why did I have to make that mistake in my prior life? All of these ideas of regret which lead to depression, all of these comprise manasam dukkam. How should they be handled? How should they be removed? Prajnaya, with wisdom. Just as bodily afflictions are removed through medicine, in the same way mental afflictions, and that's the term used, manasam dukkam. Mental afflictions should be removed, hanyat, by means of what? Prajnaya, by wisdom, by proper thinking, by proper understanding. This is one place where the modern therapy is very much in tune with some of these ancient teachings. A main form of therapy nowadays is called cognitive therapy. Cognitive therapy acknowledges the fact that a lot of our suffering, mental suffering, is due to our wrong conclusions. Wrong conclusions about ourselves in particular. So these wrong conclusions about ourselves make us suffer. Wrong conclusions like what? I'm not good enough. Or the biggest one, no one loves me. People feel like that. People talk like that. No one loves me. Everyone hates me. Everyone. I mean, people who have never met me, even they hate me. How ridiculous is that? So everyone hates me, no one loves me, I'm no good, I'm a loser, I'm useless, I'm worthless. These are all wrong conclusions that make us suffer tremendously. This is manasa dukkam, mental suffering. How is it removed? Prajnaya. With prajna. Prajna means wisdom. Proper understanding. If the mental suffering is born of wrong conclusions, then correct conclusions remove that. So Vyadha was subject to these wrong conclusions. I'm just a useless Shudra chopping up animal carcasses, but prajnaya, due to his wisdom, he avoided such wrong conclusions about himself. And of course, he's giving this teaching to the Brahmana, and therefore he's giving this teaching to all of us. We all are subject to making wrong conclusions about ourselves. Everyone has their own version of no one loves me. That's the most common thing. It's a wrong conclusion. Yeah, but Swamiji, look at all of these problems I have. Yeah, so? People with problems are still lovable. That's human nature. To have problems is human, and to be lovable and worthy of love in spite of those problems is also human nature. So this is the proper understanding that will remove the manasa dukkha. Like herbs, like medicine removes physical suffering, in the same way he says that through prajna, through this understanding, and so far he means at a psychological level. He's going to talk about spiritual understanding a little later, but right now he's talking about at a psychological level, which means emotional maturity. We're not talking about being enlightened. He will talk about it shortly. But so far, we're just talking about being emotionally mature. An emotionally mature person is one who has removed these wrong conclusions about oneself. I'm no good, I'm useless, I'm worthless, no one loves me. And how are these wrong conclusions removed? Prajnaya, with wisdom, with proper thinking. Which means, if you haven't removed those wrong conclusions, there's no emotional maturity, and that's exactly what he observes in the second half. He says, "Etat vijnana samartyam." Etat, this what vijnana samartyam. Samartyam, capacity or power. This power of vijnana, in the first line he used the term prajna, now he's using the term vijnana, means the same thing. proper understanding at a psychological level. He says, this power of proper psychological understanding, what does it do? Navrajet, it prevents you from being what? Balaihi samatam. It prevents you from being like a child. Bala child. Balaihi sama, like a child. Turn it around. If you don't have this understanding, what is his conclusion? You are like a child. You are childish. By the way, childlike is a very nice quality. We're not talking about childlike. We're talking about childish, which means all the undesirable aspects of being a child. So he says, someone who lacks this psychological insight is childish. They lack this wisdom of coming out of mental suffering. It's significant that this is really a purely psychological teaching. If you've ever concluded that Hindu scriptures are only about spiritual growth and ignore issues of emotional growth, this topic currently is 100% about the necessity for emotional growth. In just a couple of verses, he's going to segue into spiritual growth, but for right now, he says that you come out of mental suffering with proper psychological understanding, proper conclusions about yourself, and if you fail to do so, you lack emotional maturity, you are childish, according to Vyadha. Then he continues. Anishtanan vitam pashyan, anishtanan vitam tata kshipram virajyate, tata kshipram virajyate, tatascha pratikurvanti, tatascha pratikur, yadi pashyantyupakramam, yati pashyantyupakramam. Anishtena anvitam pashyan. Pashyan, seeing. Seeing the world anvitam, filled with what? Anishtena, filled with undesirable things. Seeing the world filled with problems. Seeing the world full of problems. Tata, as a result, kshipram virajyate, a mature person, and by the way, I want to correct my translation. Virajyate should not be translated here as rejected. We saw that term hanyat before. That means to be rejected. Here, virajyate, viraj is the root from which viraga and vairagya come, which means you become indifferent towards it. So, kshipram virajyate, one meaning a mature person, a person with emotional maturity, a person who has this understanding of themselves that in spite of my shortcomings, in spite of my defects, I am okay. That psychological understanding, in spite of my defects, I am okay. A person with that understanding, what about them? Pashyan, seeing, anishtena anvitam jagat, we supply the word, seeing the world full of problems, what does the mature person do? An immature person, seeing the world full of problems, can become very depressed, withdrawn, start using drugs and alcohol, etc., etc. But a mature person, seeing all the problems of the world, seeing the shortcomings of life, what will they do? Kshipram, quickly, they become virajyate, dispassionate, indifferent, unattached. They accept it as it is because there's no choice. Now you might say, wait a minute, Swamiji, should we just accept everything as it is? If the world is full of problems, Should we just accept all those problems and be very passive? Well, he makes that point in the second half. He says, tataha cha, and thereafter, which means after seeing the problems of the world, and after becoming indifferent towards those problems. Indifferent means not being so wrapped up in all of that, not being pulled down by all those problems of the world. Tataha, thereafter, that mature person, those mature people, we put it in plural, what should they do? Pratikurvanti, they should try to fix it. After recognizing the problems of the world, and after becoming somewhat detached from those problems of the world so that they're not emotionally pulled down by the problems of the world, what should they do? Pratikurvanti, they should fix the problems of the world. Well, we see a lot of problems of the world. Think of the problems going on right now in Syria. Horrible problems. For 5 years, horrible problems going on in Syria. You're mature people, so pratikurvanti. He says you're supposed to do something about it. Well, wait a minute. You're supposed to do something about it if you can, yadi, if pashyanti, if they see upakramam, if they see some means of correcting the situation, pratikurvanti, they would fix it. If they see a means of fixing the problems, they'll fix it. Let me paraphrase a verse and give you a very surprising analog to you. So the verse says that remember we're talking about mature people, not the childish ones, but a mature person, mature people seeing the problems of life. What should they do? Virajyate, they shouldn't get depressed as a result of the problems of life. On the other hand, what should they do? Pratikurvanti, they should try to fix the problems of life. Yadi, if pashyanti upakramam, if they see a means to fix those. When I read this, it sounded suspiciously like a prayer that might be familiar to some of you anyways, called the Serenity Prayer. The opening lines, the first two-thirds of the Serenity Prayer is, Lord, please give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. Virajyate. To let go of my attachment to having things my way, and to accept the things that I cannot change. That's the first half of the verse. What is the second part of the Serenity Prayer? Lord, give me the strength to change the things that I can. What is he saying here? He's saying, Yadi pashyanti upakramam. If you can see something that you can change, pratikurvanti. Change it. Fix it. So this verse seems oddly to resemble the first part of that Serenity Prayer. A mature person seeing problems in life will learn to accept it in a sense of not being depressed by it, not in a sense of just passively accepting everything. Why? Because as the verse concludes, whatever can be fixed, whatever can be changed or improved, must be changed or improved. So very nice. So here, in this verse, he's giving you the attitude towards worldly activities and worldly problems. This is really the attitude of the karma yogi. It's really karma yoga that's being described in this verse. With the next verse, we get that transition. So these two verses are talking about emotional maturity. The remaining verses will talk about spiritual maturity. And it's on a continuum. You require emotional maturity first to gain spiritual maturity. Emotional maturity happens first, then spiritual maturity. This is a very interesting observation. Let me just share this with you. suppose we think about life in terms of growth. There's a continuum of growth from being childish, not childlike, childish, and then a person can become mature. By the way, there are people who are in their 30s and 40s who are still childish. So it's not a matter of age. We're talking about internal maturity. So then you can grow to be what we'll call normal. Now notice I put it in quotation marks because normal is a misnomer. In fact, we talked about this in a recent class. Talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They will tell you there is no such thing as normal. Everyone is different, so there's no normal. So instead of normal, can we substitute the word average? It's more meaningful, right? Remember this bell curve thing? So to be in the middle of that bell curve is not normal, it is average. Do average people have emotional problems? You bet. Average people have emotional problems, which means there's something more than normal. Something better than average. That's what he's talking about here, this emotional maturity. Which means to be okay in spite of the normal problems and defects. To look at your own problems and defects and say, I'm okay. To look at another person's problems and defects and to know they are okay. This is emotional maturity. It's not, quote, normal. Normal people may not be able to do that. Average people may not be able to do that. Here in the past two verses, he's talking about people who have gained this emotional maturity. But this line continues. So if you can be average, or you can be better than average, meaning having emotional maturity, suppose we're even better than that. Well, we tend to use the term enlightened to describe such people who have not merely emotional maturity, but people who have spiritual maturity, people who have spiritual wisdom, people who have discovered the truth of themselves as revealed by our scripture, and that's what he is going to describe in the next verse. So prior two verses have been about emotional maturity, now about spiritual maturity. We go from the karma yogi in a prior verse to the jnani, the enlightened person in this verse. Parityajanti he dukkam, parityajanti te sukham vapyubhayam naraha, sukham vapyubhayam taheva sukham hedhante, taheva sukham hedhante, jnana tripta manishinaha, jnana tripta manishinaha. So taking this next step, ye naraha. Connect those words. Those people, ye naraha, those people who parityajanti, we'll translate it as transcend, those people who transcend dukkham sukham va api. Those people who transcend dukkha, suffering, and sukha, happiness. What does it mean to transcend dukkha and sukha? Means to recognize that whatever happens in life that brings pain and suffering, and to recognize whatever brings happiness and joy, none of it affects Atma, consciousness, your true self. This is premised on this grand spiritual discovery of your true nature. And we need to describe this briefly. The discovery is of this matter, of this nature. The consciousness by which you know what's happening right now, that consciousness is your fundamental nature, your true self, Atma. Suppose you could discover that your consciousness was not ordinary in any sense of the word. Suppose you could discover that your consciousness was, and the nice Sanskrit term is paripurna, absolutely complete, full, perfect. Suppose you could discover your true nature was absolutely perfect and complete and full. In Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere, the analogy is given of the ocean, and into the ocean, this comes I think at the end of chapter 2, into the ocean all of the rivers flow. Does the level of the ocean increase? And from the ocean, this part isn't in the verse, from the ocean water is constantly evaporating. Does the level of the ocean go down? So the ocean is a great metaphor because as much water as you put into the ocean or as much water as you take out of the ocean's level remains absolutely unaffected. Suppose you could discover that your consciousness was like that ocean. Oceanic consciousness. Sounds good. Suppose you discover that nothing can affect your oceanic consciousness. Which means, if a tragedy happens, your consciousness remains full and complete, just as that ocean's level cannot fall. Similarly, if you discover you've won a lottery, if you're already full and complete, how can you do better than that? This is what he's saying here when he says that those people who parityajanti have transcended dukkam sukham va, both happiness and suffering. To transcend happiness and suffering means to recognize that whatever happens in the world can't add or detract from your fullness. And to use the very common language that's often used in Hindu circles, when they say your true nature is divine, that's what we're talking about here, that inner divinity. By the way, is there any such thing as partially divine? Or is there anything as more divine? Divine means divine. If your true nature is divine, divine means having the same nature as Ishvara. Ishvara is full and complete. If your true nature is divine, your true nature is full and complete, which means you can't be more divine or less divine, because full is full. That's the point. That's what it means to transcend happiness and suffering. What about such people? Te eva, they alone. We'll translate that eva more carefully here. Te eva, those people alone, sukham edhante, they grow content. You can't really say they grow happy, because we just said we transcend happiness. They grow content, and contentment means to know that whatever happens doesn't affect you. Notice, contentment is really different. Just a comment on some English words that we use. If you say the goal of spiritual life is joy, there's a problem. And the problem is, joy is an emotion. Right? Joy is an emotion. Is it possible to have a permanent emotion? I mean, the very expression, permanent emotion, those two words don't go together, right? Not at all. Emotions by nature, by design, our emotions are constantly changing. So the goal of spiritual life cannot be perpetual joy, which means, thank goodness, when you're enlightened, you're not going to have a permanent grin on your face. How inconvenient that would be when your good friend says they just got fired from their job and you have this permanent grin on your face. Very inconvenient. So let's be clear. Enlightenment is not a permanent condition of joy. So much better to use the English word contentment. Contentment, I know we often look upon it as an emotion, but I think not. Contentment, properly understood, is who you are. Your true nature, being full and complete, is innately content. Does that make sense? If your true nature is like that ocean, oceanic consciousness, your true nature being full and complete, that is a condition of innate contentment. It's not an emotion. So edhante sukham, they grow content, having transcended happiness and sorrow, suffering. And how is it that they grow content? Because they are manishinaha, they are wise, and they are jnana triptaha. They are, nice expression, jnana tripta, fulfilled. Generally, we think of being fulfilled through a particular experience. You go out for dinner, and you get tripta, full. At some point, you have eaten enough. Look at this expression, jnana tripta, fulfilled through wisdom. The fulfillment you have at the restaurant lasts 4 hours. The fulfillment is the word. The fulfillment you have at the restaurant lasts 4 hours. The fulfillment you have through other experiences in life, that fulfillment only lasts so long, right? When you get the fulfillment of a new job, you're elated. Doesn't it wear off? You have the fulfillment of a new car. How long does that last? You have the fulfillment of a new home. You have the fulfillment of a new child or grandchild. Fine, wonderful. But all of that wears off, just like the nice meal you have in the restaurant. So here, jnana triptaha, they are fulfilled through wisdom, specifically through the wisdom of knowing that you are full and complete like the ocean. Knowing you are full and complete like the ocean, knowing nothing can add to you or take away from you. With this knowledge, you become jnana tripta, you become fulfilled through knowledge. And he makes a nice comparison in the next verse. Asantosha para mudha, asantosha para santosham yanti panditaha, santosham yanti asantoshasya nasyantas, asantoshasya tushtastu paramam sukham, tushtastu paramam sukham. Asantosha paraha mudhaha. Mudha is a favorite word in Sanskrit. By the way, mudha comes into Hindi as murk. So in Sanskrit, mudha. Interesting to note the derivation of the word, though, because mukh is to be confused. So one who is confused is mudha. It's not really a character flaw. So really, one who is confused, one who is ignorant. really speaking. That's what mudha here means, not a fool. It means one who suffers from ignorance. Mudha. Those ignorant ones, I know I've translated here fool, but it's a common translation. So mudha, those ignorant ones, those fools, are asantosha paraha. Asantosha paraha, they are constantly asantosha, they are constantly discontent. Constantly discontent means what? Constant, which means never content. So, fools are never content. The ignorant ones are never content. That's a very important and profound observation, because everyone wants contentment in life, and everyone works hard for contentment in life, and will all that hard work ever culminate in a condition of perfect contentment? We've had this discussion many times here. So one does not gain perfect contentment through hard work. One gains perfect contentment, what is a prior verse? Jnana tripta, through spiritual wisdom. Wisdom comes through contentment. Through hard work comes all the blessings of your hard work. You get the pala, the fruits of your hard work. You're blessed by all that. But no matter how much you get, here's the point is too obvious. No matter how much you acquire, there's always more. Always more. Therefore, mudha, those who lack spiritual wisdom, asantosha paraha, they are continually discontent. They never reach true contentment. Why? Let's go down to the third line. So those who lack wisdom, who are always discontent, why? Asantoshasya na asti antaha. Asantoshasya, for discontentment, na antaha asti. There is no end to discontentment, which means the simple-minded, you are content according to what you have acquired and achieved. So suppose we have a scale. On one hand, we put what you've achieved and acquired, and on the other part of the scale, we put what you have yet to achieve and acquire. Which is more? What you have yet to achieve and acquire will always be far more than what you've achieved and acquired. And when will you ever get the scales to tip? Never. Because, how about, what is the limit of worldly contentment? There are human beings walking around in this country that have more personal wealth than about half of the countries on this planet. Think about that. Mr. Gates has more wealth than many small countries. So, what weighs more? Will you ever acquire that kind of wealth? $40 billion, not million. Getting a few $1 million, you can conceive of a few million. Even 40 million, you can sort of conceive of 40 million. How about 40,000 million? Any hope? No hope. We're all hopeless. The point is, what you have yet to achieve or acquire is virtually limitless. Therefore, discontentment is limitless. For the unwise, Mudha, or Puja Swamiji, remember his joke? He would say, two categories of people in the world. There are those who are wise, and then there are the otherwise. Mudha, the otherwise. So for the otherwise, there's no hope of coming up to Mr. Gates's level. Therefore, there is no hope for contentment. On the other hand, line 2, Santosham yanti panditaha. Panditaha, here pandita does not mean scholar, it means an enlightened person in this context. In this context, panditaha, those who are enlightened. The opposite of the mudhaha, those who lack wisdom. Here, panditaha, those who have spiritual wisdom, santosham yanti, they gain perfect contentment. How do they gain perfect contentment? Not by acquiring $40 billion of personal wealth. They gain contentment how? Prior verse, jnana tripta. They gain contentment through wisdom. So he says in the last line, this tripti hitu paramam sukham. This tripti, the satisfaction of the enlightened ones, is paramam sukham. It is a kind of sukha which is parama. Now we talked about the word joy. Sukha can often be translated as joy. So parama sukha, supreme joy, which means your grin doesn't just go to the ends of your cheeks, it must go, it must keep going. What does it mean? Paramam sukham. You can't translate that supreme joy. It means unchanging contentment, perfect fullness, completeness. That's what is the goal. One who has discovered that oceanic, that vastness, the vastness of your true nature, one who has discovered their essential vastness, knows nothing can make them better, nothing can take anything away from them. This is the vision of enlightenment, is to have that sense of security, knowing, recognizing the vastness of your true nature, and therefore knowing that you have nothing to fear. You are, the expression you've heard me use, you are okay no matter what. That really is a very simple way of describing the vision of an enlightened person, knowing that you are okay no matter what, which means your contentment is not dependent on any situation, on any acquisition, on anything whatsoever. Your contentment is a permanently established truth about who you are as Satchidananda Atma. Then, Bhuteshva bhavam sanchantya bhuteshva bhavam san yetu buddhe param gataha yetu buddhe param gataha na shochanti krita prajnaha na shochanti krita prajna pashyanta paramam gatam pashyanta paramam gatam. Sanchintya, we're talking about the enlightened people. Sanchintya, the enlightened people who reflect. Sanchintya, having reflected, reflecting on what? Bhuteshu abhavam. Literally on the abhava, the absence, bhuteshu, with regard to worldly things, the absence of worldly things, best understood as the instability of worldly things. Sanchintya, reflecting on the instability of worldly things. World is unstable, and we often conveniently ignore that. And we ignore it at some risk. For example, if you take your good health for granted, you're ignoring the very real possibility that at any time we could lose our good health. Any number of medical emergencies could rob us of good health, and to be naive to that fact is naive. So to recognize that truth, that health is impermanent, wealth is impermanent, life is impermanent. There's nothing in this world that is permanent. You know, they say death and taxes, but that's kind of a okay. But we recognize whatever. I don't want to sound too depressing. That's okay. You're all enlightened, so you can handle this. Since you're all enlightened, I can tell you this, that whatever you have will be lost. And that's just a fact. We've been given our bodies and good health. It's being taken away from us even now, day by day. Our good health and bodies are being taken away from us. And whatever you have achieved or acquired in life, it may still be with you today, but it won't be with you after your last day. It'll all be taken away from you. So whatever you have, you will be deprived of. Sanchita, reflecting on this fact. An enlightened person, reflecting on the truth that everything in life is impermanent. What about them? Yea, those people who param gataha buddhehe. Those who have gataha, reached, param buddhehe, the ultimate understanding. The buddhehe param, the highest limit of wisdom. Those people who have reached the highest limit of wisdom, those people who have become enlightened, even though, sanchintya, even when they reflect on the impermanence of everything in life, what about them? Nashochanti. They don't grieve. They don't feel any sense of resentment or loss, reflecting on the impermanence of everything. And impermanence of everything means family, friends, etc. You know too well. With this particular wisdom, nashochanti, there's no possibility of suffering. There is a possibility of sadness, but not of suffering. Let's make that distinction. We've made it several times in the past. Sadness is a normal human emotion, and when we suffer a loss, to feel sad is normal and appropriate, but suffering is a whole other thing. Sadness is not a problem. And I think you all have heard my metaphor that describes why sadness is not a problem. If sadness were a problem, would you enjoy sad movies? You enjoy sad movies. You can walk out of a movie theater with tears going down your cheeks, saying it's the best movie you've seen in years. Sadness is not the problem. Sadness is not your enemy. Sadness is not a problem. Suffering is. So no problem. If somebody passes away, feel sad, but don't suffer. And that's what this wisdom will allow you to feel sad without suffering, just as in a movie. You feel that sadness. But is it fake sadness you get in the movie theater? There's no such thing as fake sadness. Sad is sad. They're not fake tears. So imagine being able to feel sad with no sense of regret or resentment. Sadness without suffering. Sadness without the regret, sadness without the resentment. How does one achieve that? Buddhehi param gataha. Those who have reached the highest limit of spiritual wisdom, na shochanti. They can feel sadness without that regret, without the resentment. They are krita prajnaha. Those whose prajna, wisdom, is krita, is perfected. Those who have reached the highest limit of spiritual wisdom, those who have perfect understanding, krita prajnaha. And what about them? They are those who are pashyantaha paramam gatim. They have discovered pashyantaha, they have discovered paramam gatim, the highest goal of life. The highest goal of life is to achieve this highest limit of spiritual understanding, having achieved which there is no more suffering at all. Sadness, yes. Suffering, no. Bringing us finally to the last verse. By the way, pashyantaha param gatim, those who have reached the highest goal, that includes Vyadha. That includes the butcher who has been giving this rather lengthy discourse to the Brahmana, and now the Vyadha, our enlightened Vyadha, concludes this whole Vyadha Gita, concludes this chapter and this entire section. Na shochami cha vidwan, na shochami cha vid, kala kangshi stitosmyaham, kala kangshi stito. Hetar nidarshanar brahman, hetar nidarshanar navasidami sattama, navasidami sattama. So if anyone has a legitimate basis for being depressed, it could include the Vyadha, who knows that he was born to a life as a Shudra, chopping up animal carcasses because of an act he did in his prior life. He has a good reason to be depressed, but he says, Nashochami, I don't grieve at all. Vidwan, he addresses the Brahmana, O wise one, O learned Brahman, Nashochami vai, not at all. I don't grieve at all. On the other hand, kala akankshi stitaha asmi aham. Asmi aham. Aham, I, asmi, I am. Stitaha, standing here. Where is he standing? In his butcher shop, which is where this whole dialogue has taken place. Interesting to imagine that this lofty spiritual dialogue has been taken place in a butcher shop. They're surrounded by dead animal carcasses. This is what it is. He says, I remain here, standing in my butcher shop, nashochami, without grieving at all, kala akangshi, waiting upon time. Kala akangshi, waiting on time. Waiting for what? I suppose waiting for this life as a butcher, as a Shudra, waiting for this life to come to an end. Fulfilling his duty, fulfilling his dharma, his responsibility to his family. Not only fulfilling his responsibility to his family, but helping others, like the Brahmana. We might guess that the Brahmana is not the only person who has sought out his advice. Maybe he is probably famous, not probably, we can assume, he's famous in his village and in that region. He's famous for being a good source of advice. Remember, the Brahmana was sent by that lady? So how did the lady know that he should go and see this Vyadha? The Vyadha was famous. Famous for his wisdom. So he lives a life of dharma, fulfilling his responsibilities and helping others. Kala akangshi, waiting for his time to expire, waiting for this life to conclude. Etaihi nidarshanaihi brahman, O Brahmana. Etaihi darshanahi. Due to this perspective, due to my understanding, due to this wisdom I possess, na avasidami. I am not depressed. Literally. Na avasidami. I am not depressed. Sattama, O great one, O great Brahmana, with this wisdom, due to this wisdom, in spite of his terrible circumstances, he says, due to this spiritual wisdom, I'm okay. Okay, no matter what. And that's what these teachings, that's the fruit of these teachings, is to gain a contentment and peace in life that doesn't depend on any situation. A final comment, our situations in life are continually changing. Right now things might be going well, later they may not be going well. Or right now things may be very difficult, in the future they'll be fine. If our contentment and inner peace is dependent on external situations, our life will be a roller coaster. I don't know. Some people like roller coasters. I don't think I would enjoy. Maybe as a child, I probably would enjoy all of that. But who can live like that? So imagine finding an inner peace and contentment which doesn't depend on any situation whatsoever. Which means, in spite of life going up and down like this, you are ever content. That is the blessing of these teachings. So with this verse we come to the end of this section called Vyadha Gita. These 10 chapters taught by the Vyadha to the Brahmana. When we meet next time we'll continue. We have some more. We're still in the Vyadha Parva. We're still in the third book. So we have a long way to go. So we have a couple more chapters in the third book, and then we will proceed. We'll see that in our next class. Some announcements. Tomorrow, Sunday, our children's program is resuming. If you have children or if you know of a family that has some children, we have a really nice program for kids. Have them come at 11 o'clock will be our children's program. Starts tomorrow. And I mentioned before, tomorrow we're starting, instead of our usual satsang, on the third Sunday of each month, we're doing a special meditation of chanting. Calling it a musical meditation. There'll be chanting of mantras and various ragas. There'll be some stotra as well. Be very quiet, prayerful, meditative chanting. So that meditation will be tomorrow at 6:15. Please join us. On Tuesday, our Vedanta class continues. We've just begun. I'm making this announcement again because if you wait several weeks, it won't be possible to join the group because the text will proceed too fast. But there's only been one class so far, so if you'd like to join the Vedanta class in which we're studying this wonderful text, Panchadashi, on Tuesday evenings at 7:30. If you'd like to join us, please come this coming Tuesday. Also, if you missed the last class, you can listen online. You can listen to the first class online and then come join us for this coming Tuesday's class. I have a question for you. Last week, I mentioned that we are considering starting a chanting session to learn Rudram and perhaps other things. And I suggested that we might do that on Monday evenings. Somebody also suggested that we could consider doing it on Sunday mornings. And what I'd like to find out from you is how many of you would have a preference for one or the other. What we would be doing is learning Vedic chanting. In our Ganesh Chaturthi celebration, we had a long discussion about the power of learning Vedic chants. So we'll start by learning Shri Rudram, learn to chant it properly. And once we've learned to chant it properly, then we can use Rudram when we do puja and abhishekam, Shiva abhishekam. So it'll be very powerful for our prayerful practice here. We could do that either on, by the way, we haven't said it, we don't have any plan yet, I just want your feedback. We could either do this chanting session on Monday evenings from 7:30 to 8:30, 1 hour. Alternatively, we could do it on Sunday mornings from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Can I see, as a show of hands, how many would be interested in doing it on Monday evenings? Hold your hands up for a minute, please. 10, 25, okay. And how many people would be interested in doing it on Sunday mornings from 10 to 11? Hold your hands up for a minute, please. 10, 20. Okay, thank you. There's a little bit of a slight preference for the Sunday mornings. I don't have a plan yet. When we have a plan, we'll announce it. But it would be very nice indeed to begin. All right. Library will be open, and we'll conclude our prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschya Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.